for me, I was like, I'm not taking a pregnancy test right away. Even if I think I'm pregnant, I'm waiting another 2 weeks and then I'm going to take it. Like, just because then if I don't, what I don't know won't hurt me. I'll think that it's just a late period, which sounds horrible. But like, if I had thought, oh, my period's just really late and then I bled, it wouldn't have been so traumatic. Hey guys.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Quarantine life week 3.
Like, I didn't even really know it was Sunday. It's like, what day of the week is it?
You know what's funny thing about this virus is like part of me, like the super weird part of me is kind of like half expecting when I go out to start seeing like zombies, like The Walking Dead or something. Like this virus is what turns us into zombies or vampires.
You see how empty the streets are and it's like this eerie feeling of like sanitary is coming to an end.
Yeah, there's some great pictures actually of like downtown LA and New York where the streets
down
are
the freeways.
Yeah, and it was funny. I had a friend of mine at work before work got suspended. Well, suspended from going in the office. And Amber needs to turn off her phone because she doesn't like to silence it during podcasts.
I think that's our really sweet neighbor leaving guacamole on our front porch for us.
Yeah, T and Kavika, they're awesome.
Yeah. I mean, what neighbor makes you cookies and fresh homemade guacamole?
Yeah. You know what? Anyways, I had a friend who like showed me a picture of like New York streets, like completely bare in New York City. And the last time that that I saw that was when we were in New York before we had Chloe. We had done like a baby moon out there, and it was during Snowmageddon, and it was like the heaviest snowfall that they've had in like 20 years or something like that.
Oh yeah, we were there like in a blizzard.
And they actually had an APB out, or whatever you want to call it.
Stay home, don't drive.
Don't drive. Yeah, no cars on the street. You could actually get fined. They just have police cars roaming around. That was pretty cool.
So we were literally walking down Times Square in New York, and it was empty. Like there were no cars. Yeah. You could walk down the middle of Times Square just because it was like in 4 feet of snow.
Yeah.
Maybe more. Yeah. There was a lot of snow.
It's pretty incredible. Those are fun. Like to always do little adventures like that, before you have big events, or if you have something big.
It was a bummer though, because it was an anniversary weekend and we were there for
it was in January, remember? It was like 2 months before our anniversary.
But it was sort of our anniversary trip. And we went to go see a Broadway show and do a fancy dinner.
Yeah, we had a lot of things.
And we had no kids. And then almost everything was canceled. So
yeah, everything was canceled.
It was kind of like this.
Yeah.
Where
it's
life
like you
is
couldn't
canceled.
go out and eat. I mean, we ate in a restaurant, but then the restaurants are closing because they discourage patrons. I remember we were walking back to our hotel and we needed something to eat, and so we found some random sushi place, in the middle of Times Square. Got in just before they closed their doors.
Yeah, thank goodness.
It was crazy.
So today, because of everything that's going on, we want to touch on grief and just like things that we've gone through that were like really low valleys for us.
Yeah.
And everyone goes through the really low valleys. The peaks are really nice and you ride them as long as you can. But no matter what, like you're going to go through a tough time. And for this period, for some people, they're probably in one of those deep valleys where they maybe just got laid off and lost their job and they're really struggling financially right now. Or maybe you struggle with depression and not being able to go out and socialize or stick to your routine is really hurting you. So we want to talk about dealing with grief and what we've been through.
Yeah. There's been it's interesting. There's a lot of memes coming out right now with respect to like, in 8 months, book your maternity session because everybody's going to be pregnant in 8 months. We're going to start calling them Corona babies, Oh
my God.
Or perennials.
Oh my gosh.
So that'll be the next term coin. But it's, it's interesting. We were kind of reflecting on that a little bit and thinking back to like our pregnancy journeys, journey together, not journeys separate, like they were separate journeys, but one together.
A lot of our babies were unplanned.
Yeah.
They were surprises.
They really were. I mean, the only one that was kind of planned was Jaden, our first.
Yeah.
But there was actually baby ground zero before Jaden, where we found out we were pregnant actually 2 months prior to Jaden coming, and we had a miscarriage.
Yeah, so we wanted to be really vulnerable and open with you guys because I didn't realize just how common miscarriage was. And you always think that's not going to happen to me. Like that only happens, in the movies. I don't know. You don't think it's going to happen to you, and then it does. And so we didn't even know we were pregnant. And I took a test. I was bawling when he got home, but they were happy tears. I was bawling when he got home from soccer practice, like, we're pregnant. And he was just like in shock, like he didn't know how to take it because we were only 2 years into marriage. And And we find this elaborate way to tell my family. We're like, okay, we're going over there to take Christmas family photos. So we'll take some photos, and then around like the 5th or 6th photo, we'll say 1, 2, 3, we're pregnant, and we'll get the reaction like in the take, like in the picture. And it was amazing. He actually started running a video. My mom cried, and they all hugged us, and it was amazing. Yeah. And literally the next day, I was walking around the mall with my sister and started bleeding. And we learned a big lesson, because I found out you really shouldn't tell people right away. You just never know what's going to happen. And we definitely waited longer to tell people with each pregnancy after that. But literally the next night, we were in the emergency room and getting an ultrasound done. And they're like, you had a miscarriage. And I remember just laying in bed days after that, both of us laying in bed, just like really depressed. Really sad, heavy. Really depressed, not wanting to see anyone, not really wanting to talk. And we didn't even talk a lot ourselves. We were just silently being together. Mm-hmm. And so we just kind of want to talk about like how you deal with grief, how you comfort people going through hard times.
Yeah, there's no hard and fast rules with that either. I mean, we waited 2 years. I was kind of like, well, we wanted to have our time together, so we waited a little bit before we had kids, traveled a little bit, and to be honest, like, I mean, it's like you're never really ready for a baby, just like you're never fully ready to buy a house. You're never fully ready to like get married, right? Like there's so many factors that go into readiness. And so so it was a big surprise to me. I was just like, okay, we got a soccer game we got to go to. Can we talk about this later?
And it's funny because we weren't planning on having a baby quite yet. So it was a surprise. And literally, like, before the idea was even permanent, it was gone, And so, and then you never realize how much you want something until it's gone. Mm-hmm. Like, after the miscarriage, after we grieved, all I wanted was to get pregnant again.
Yeah.
And
you never know, like, how your body's going to take pregnancy until you're in the middle of pregnancy. And we know a lot of people who have had miscarriages. We know people who have a hard time conceiving, who can't conceive. Like there's a whole spectrum.
We know people
that have this kind of hardship, pregnancy hardships. And I think it's easy to think that as a miscarriage, like something, you did something wrong. Right. Or like,
or there's something wrong with your body.
Why is this happening? Yeah. And the reality is I think that as pregnancy tests have gotten better and better, and they're able to tell sooner and sooner, they look for that pregnancy hormone. And so they're able to detect the pregnancy hormone very, very, very early on. Yeah. But in those first couple of weeks, more often than not, that's the time when your body's figuring out just biologically if this is a viable thing for your body to go through. Yeah. And I think our bodies were created in such, especially the female body's been created in such a very unique and special way to be able to tell that. It knows what your body can handle, when it can't, what's right, what's not. And there's such a divine providence, if you will, that's wrapped up in that decision that your body's making. You just, I thought was one of the things that kind of comforted is like there was something wrong with how the pregnancy got started. Your body wasn't
realized
able to run
something
that,
was wrong. Yeah.
And
for me, I learned so many lessons from it. For me, I was like, I'm not taking a pregnancy test right away. Even if I think I'm pregnant, I'm waiting another 2 weeks and then I'm going to take it. Just because then what I don't know won't hurt me. I'll think that it's just a late period, which sounds horrible. But like if I had thought, oh, my period's just really late and then I bled, it wouldn't have been so traumatic. Yeah. But, I think you would know the difference though. And I know a lot of people who have had late term miscarriages or even stillborns and gone through serious grief. And I just remember being around family and not realizing how much it affected our families as well. Seeing them grieve too with us. Yeah. And people always wonder, like, what do you say to make that person feel better? Like, what can I do to make it better? What can I do to help? And really, it was just them being there for us. Like, they could sit there silently and hang out with me and not say anything. And it was just people being there. Like, there's really nothing you can say. But for me, it was just time. Like, we just needed time to heal. And we didn't say anything really specific. We just cried together, prayed together, and just silently let time heal it.
Yeah. I don't know that there was anything necessarily I mean, I remember when it happened, it was distinct. Obviously, it's tough for me as a dude, not just a dude, but as me, I don't know. I feel like the older I've gotten in certain situations, the less emotional I've gotten, and my emotions kind of happen spontaneously. Like, for example, I never ever in a million years did I think like, oh man, yeah, I totally would cry when I had like my firstborn baby, right? But then there I was, like the emotion just came over me the minute that Jaden popped out. Mm-hmm. And then it happened again with Chloe, and then I was too distracted with Maya to cry. But
that's because you caught her.
I got the opportunity to catch her. So I don't know. It's tough, like in those moments from my perspective on my end to like feel what Amber's feeling. Obviously, I'm not going through the miscarriage. So there's an attachment that a mother has to her child that a dad doesn't have yet. Right. And, but I don't know that there was anything that I necessarily was able to do or did to comfort you during that time as a spouse,
I think you being there was just really important, like spending time with me. Luckily, I think it happened over a weekend, and we literally just like laid in bed.
It's close to Christmas too, so
it was right around Christmas time. And I could tell it was really hitting my sisters hard, my parents. We had to tell his family because we hadn't told them yet they were pregnant, so we had to tell them that we had a miscarriage. And it's just really hard thing to share when it's so fresh. And what made it worse too is sometimes medical professionals are great. Like the nurses I've had when delivering babies were all awesome. But when I went into the emergency room that night, the lady who did my vaginal ultrasound was very distant, cold, and the way she was moving that camera up around in there, it was so painful, you guys. It was the most painful thing ever. And I'm like, okay, I think we've come to the conclusion that there's nothing in there you can stop with the torture. Like, it was so painful.
Yeah, because they basically, when we went in there, they were trying to find a heartbeat, and they couldn't find a heartbeat. And so that was one, and they didn't even find when she went in for the ultrasound, they didn't even find an embryo.
I think it had
already kind of passed at that time.
So I just wanted to touch on something super vulnerable because we got so much feedback from our last video talking about the hard times we've gone through in marriage and how we overcame those in our last anniversary video. And they're like, oh, you should talk about more, stuff on marriage and family. Mm-hmm. And I know so many of you women have gone through a similar experience. Could have even been worse. Could have been like halfway through your pregnancy and you had to get, the D&C done. Yeah.
It's just interesting too in times of trial like that. Trials are always an opportunity for transformational change in my opinion.
Grow through them,
you grow through those. You transform into a better version of yourself as you go through and endure trials, and on the broad side of a trial is always where the growth is. And so
I think we came closer together because of it, and it also prepared us for babies in a way that it, like thrust us into being ready for a baby. Yep. We got pregnant with Jaden very shortly after, and I feel like because of the miscarriage, we were ready that time to kind of take that adventure on.
Yeah, you were definitely more ready than I was. Like around that time, I probably could have easily waited another year or two, but then
I really wanted one after that.
Yeah, but then Jaden came, and he was just like an angel child.
He was an angel baby.
He was an angel baby. Like, he was the sweetest little boy. He still is a very sweet boy. Like, our kids, it's interesting. Do you see the personality differences in kids as you have more? Jaden's like, he's very sweet. He's smart. He's sensitive. So you have to be very, very careful how you parent him and discipline him.
Chloe is a Sour Patch child. She is so caring and cuddly and maternal, but also fiery and sassy.
But she too, like she's the type though that has a really rough exterior, but she's also very sensitive. Yeah. And so you got to be very careful how you discipline her. You have to discipline her in a particular way that's different than how you discipline Jaden. Jaden's feelings on his sleeves kind of guy. You know what he's feeling because he's feeling it. Chloe, she may be hurting inside, but she covers it with this really rough sassy exterior, and so, but Jaden, like when he came in, it was just like our hearts were prepared. And I think that's why you have 9 months to really to bake a baby, because it prepares your hearts to be ready for like all the change that you are going to go through, and you grow closer together as a couple, especially with your first. You're spending so much time, growing, preparing, and that sort of thing. And I think that's part of the, whatever situation or challenge you might be going through, if it's in this particular area and you're grieving due to miscarriage, it's like there's always a plan behind it. I mean, whether you believe in a higher power or not, there's always some sort of divine plan, in my estimation, that kind of walks you through these instances, and everything that happens is how it was intended to happen, you know? And
which is really hard to see in the moment, though. It's really hard to accept in the moment. Yeah.
And I think I think that when you rest in that fact and you can understand that fact and accept that fact, you approach these trials and challenges a bit differently.
And this goes to infertility. I want to touch on infertility too, because I know so many amazing people who have struggled and are struggling with infertility, where they've gone through all sorts of treatments or procedures, or they're just starting on their infertility journey. Yeah. And I know that, like, just from watching, like, how much grief it can put you through. Yeah. And it's crazy to me, because I feel like the people who always struggle with infertility, I look at them and I'm like, they would be the best parents. Like, literally, they would be amazing parents. And so it's hard for me to even watch. And I always think to myself, what can I do to help, like, their grief? Like, what can I do to make them feel better? And I just don't know, rather than, like, I pray for them for sure all the time.
And you just be there for them. I mean, I have and the other thing too, I think, is we put a lot of unnecessary and undue stress on ourselves with respect to this situation. Going back to the point earlier about having, just understanding, like, things are going to happen as they're intended to happen.
Yeah. I have a friend, see the growth that they go through too. Like, they're mature and they grow together stronger too because of it. You know,
I have friends who have done IVF, for example, in vitro fertilization, and it's not an inexpensive process or procedure, but this is just really interesting, just to show, like, how our bodies were designed and how God made us here. For a second, they've done multiple rounds of this, no success, and it wasn't until they surrendered themselves to whatever,
or almost like gave up and just kind of
not. I wouldn't say it gave up as much, like but just they surrendered to the idea of that they weren't in control of that, and that when they surrendered that, they started taking care of themselves, and all of a sudden you saw a total difference in just their lifestyle, and the stress was gone, and then they got pregnant 6 months later.
I feel like the worry and the stress can affect your body. I mean, we see that stress does affect our bodies, so the worrying and the stressing and obsessing can even make it harder. But it's almost impossible to not stress and, just think and dwell on it, because it's such an emotional roller coaster. But this was just a really vulnerable topic, and we debated even talking about it, but we're pretty open with it. Our close friends and family already know. Some of you may not have known we even went through that, but I just know so many people who silently struggle with the same things. So we just wanted to touch on grief, especially with everything society's going through right now.
Yeah. So that's just one example. I mean, there's a lot more examples of grief and death and things like that we've had to deal with. We'll talk about those on a future episode, but we kind of were thinking particularly about infertility and miscarriages, because it's something that a lot of people go through. We've gone through it, and I hope that was helpful to anybody who might be going through it. We're always open to having this conversation. We've had a conversation about this type of stuff with, like, new parents and people who are getting ready to have kids, and in a future episode, we'll have a conversation too, I think, with respect to, like, when do you know when you're ready to have kids? I think that's on a lot of newly marrieds' minds. And so I have a lot of interesting thoughts, and Amber does too, about that particular topic, because something that we've gone through, everybody goes through it. And there's not necessarily one right way to do it or not. And so we could discuss a lot of the different thoughts that we have on that. But hopefully this was helpful.
Yeah, we're here for you guys. If you are going through something, feel free to reach out to us via private message.
Yeah.
If you ever want to talk,
Please.
we are open books about almost anything. So
Yeah.
we're here for you guys if you want to
Definitely.
chat about something personal.
Also, stay tuned. We got a lot of new stuff coming your way. We're going to be launching a kind of full branding experience with respect to the Hubby Wifey Hustle podcast. So please join us in that effort. Everybody who's listened and watched up until this point, we are so grateful for you guys.
Yeah, we're getting a fancy website.
We're excited to just kind of share a lot of this and share life with all of you who are listening. So please do us a favor. We're moving everything to a new YouTube channel. So please subscribe on that YouTube channel and ring the little bell so you can get notifications when we post new content up there. That's going to be the living, breathing organism for all the video content. We're going to continue to upload podcasts via iTunes and all of the audio channels as well. We'll also have a new website that'll be launching. We'll share that with you guys soon. And we'll also have a new Facebook page that is going to be dedicated to the Hubby Wifey Hustle stuff. So please stay tuned for that. Go like the Facebook page, and we'll share the links in the video in the description below so you can share with all of that excitement with us over the coming weeks. So we hope everybody's doing well.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.